to President Obama's speeches over the weekend?
Look, I think he was an incompetent president. I think President Obama was one of the worst presidents in the history of our country. I think he was an incompetent president. I know what he left us. He left us a broken military. He left us a military that ISIS was all over the place, and I got rid of it. I knocked out 100% of the caliphate, and even you will admit that, John. And when I came in, it was a mess. But we had a broken military. We had a depleted military. We had little on the shelves, if you talk about pandemics. We had a country that was a mess. We were paying high taxes. We were paying, and outside of this artificial event that took place 2 months ago, and I'm going to build the country into stronger and better than it was even then. And it's already happening, and you can see it. You can see it today. Just take a look at the stock market. Look at what's going on. Look at the great numbers that are being. But I think President Obama was an incompetent president. He did a terrible job. And by the way, there was great division in our country with President Obama. You didn't see it as much, but there was tremendous division in our country. Okay?
Acknowledge there's division now, too, right?
I think we'll have great, yeah. You know, success brings. We had a great success going. Things were really going along, and then China gave us a wonderful gift, okay? And it wasn't pretty. It came out of China, just in case you had any questions, John. It came out of China, spread to Europe, but also came here. And the whole world became infected by this horrible thing that they unleashed one way or the other. Not a good situation. Not a good situation. I'm not a man that likes taking that. What happened to us, and it was totally preventable. They could have stopped it at the source. They knew it was happening. We wanted to go in. Others wanted to go in. They wouldn't let other countries go in. Other countries wanted to. World Health wanted to, in all fairness to World Health. They wouldn't let World Health in. And we're a part of World Health. They wouldn't let them in either. They could have stopped it at the source, and they chose not to. And yet, they stopped them from going to Wuhan into different parts of China. So you couldn't go into Beijing. What do you think of that, Tillman? You couldn't go into China. Seriously, look, they wouldn't let them into China. But they'd let them into Europe, and they'd let them into all over the world, including the United States. It's lucky I did the ban. That's all I can tell you. It's lucky I did the ban.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Distort the Order, a place where you will find no lies. It's a memory that still brings a smile to my face. You know, we're kids, given the narrative that America is riddled with so many problems named George Bush, and then one day, poof. Barack Obama is the president. We have the first black president. There is a good God. We are making progress. And honestly, I used to love Obama. I liked his professional demeanor. I liked how kind he sounds. His approach and speeches always seem practical and relatable, like he can lull you to believe that he will make everything better. America will be better. It doesn't matter that it's the financial collapse of 2008 because Obama is there. It's okay. He will make it all better. But did he really? Today, we're going to look at the actions of this man and whether he was truly looking out for our best interests, and we will take an economic approach to assess this. Before we get into it, I'd like to ask you guys to subscribe to the channel, like and comment on the video, and hit the notification bell, as that will help me grow the channel and continue putting out good content for you guys. The reason I like to look at things economically is because math does not lie. Politicians will lie, but the numbers won't. But to the Dems, math is just the stuff the big boys do while they take care of making everyone's emotions feel nice and fuzzy. Let's take a look at how much the national debt increased during Obama's 2 terms. When Obama was sworn in on January 20th, 2009, the debt was just over $10.5 trillion. So yeah, quite a lot. But when he left office on January 20th, 2017, it was almost $20 trillion, roughly double and more than any other president. Now, the left can argue that Obama inherited an economy that was completely decimated in 2008, and that required a lot of spending and incurring even more debt to fix the economy. And that's a fair statement to make. But the thing is, Obama did not address the main issue. And the reason the deficit is increasing more and more, and why the economy overall keeps tending to struggle, and why despite the biggest bull market of the last 12 years, excluding the last few months, of course, the debt keeps going up. There's a reason for that. And the reason is he kept addressing the symptoms, but never the problems. The main reason why there is an inherent problem with the US economy and why the debt never gets resolved, and it's an issue that has gotten more and more of our attention lately as a result of COVID. Any guesses as to what the word could be? I'll let the man himself tell you.
China, 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 China. You go over to China, 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 China. You take China.
China.
China. I love them. China, 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 China. I have to have my China. China, China, because China, 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 China.
Now, people have given the president tons of heat on his stance on China before and after the illness, but we're going to talk about that later. Let's get back to Obama. The main issue that the United States is facing and the debt never seems to decrease is because companies are outsourcing goods and services to China. This has been going on for decades, and I'll show you the math as to why this is bad. Let's say the new iPhone comes out, manufactured in China. You go buy it for, let's say, $1,000, you finance it or you paid up front, but let's say for the sake of simplicity that you paid for all of it up front. Out of the $1,000 you paid to Apple, Apple has to pay employees at the Apple Store, which is good for the economy because it creates jobs. They have to pay rent, which is also good for the economy because the money stays in America. It goes to an American corporation that owns, for example, the shopping mall where more American employees get paid to do their job. Insurances, banks, institutions, taxes, of course, get a piece of that pie, which is also good for the economy. But there is a place where they have to pay.
China. China, 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 China. I've been saying China, 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 China.
This iPhone was manufactured in China by Chinese employees, and Apple does it because it's significantly cheaper than getting it built in the US. And Apple is not the only company doing this. Now, a lot of you know this, but we ignore the extent to which this has affected our economy's ability to be self-sustaining. It's like we have a big pot of water with a label on it called the American economy. And let's say that pot of water has a small leak in it, and that leak is the money companies are spending to outsource goods and services to China. Well, over the years, that leak has gotten bigger and bigger as more and more companies outsource. So while there are tremendous benefits to a company like Apple, like having beautiful financial statements, having tremendous amounts of growth over the years, at the end, there is still a leak. And when we look at simple economics, when imports exceed exports, we have a deficit. Let's take a look at the top US exports versus the top Chinese exports. Here we can see that in the United States, the largest good that the United States exports is food, beverages, and feed for $133 billion. Crude oil would be second at $109 billion. Auto parts, engines, car tires, $86 billion. Industrial machines, $57 billion. Passenger cars, $53 billion. And pharmaceuticals at $51 billion. Now, it doesn't seem too bad, right? Let's take a look at the top US service exports because since 2008, the economy of the United States has shifted more to a service industry. Here you can see that travel and transportation account for the largest at $236 billion, finance and insurance, $76 billion, sales from intellectual property, $49 billion. Now let's take a look at Chinese exports, and these numbers will astound you. Chinese exports, number one is electrical machinery and equipment at $671 billion, which is only 26.9% of their total exports. Let's scroll back up to the United States. Their largest export is only $133 billion. The largest Chinese export is $671 billion US dollars. There's a huge gap between how much China exports and how much the United States export. Now, factor this in with the fact that in the last 6 years, Americans have spent over $120 billion annually on consumer electronics. moving along, we have machinery, including computers, 417 billion, furniture, bedding, lighting, signs, 99.5 billion, plastic and plastic articles, 84.4 billion, vehicles, 74.4 billion, and it goes on and on. But you can clearly see that electrical machinery and equipment and machinery, including computers, make up for over $8 trillion of Chinese exports. The numbers don't lie. You can clearly see that there is a huge disparity between the two countries' exports. Obama never addressed this, and he needed to, because now the situation is far worse. And I personally see this as a failure of his presidency, and it shows a lack of pragmatic focus, not just from the president, but the whole Democratic Party in and of itself. However, our current president has had a much different take. The president has said time and time again that his goal is to bring manufacturing back home, and he was decisive with his tariffs as a start. Another way we could look at bringing those jobs back home would be to incentivize tech companies to bring manufacturing back home, whether it be through subsidies, significant corporate tax cuts for companies that manufacture domestically, as well as disincentivizing importing. Whether he will be able to successfully accomplish this during his presidency is not the topic of this video, however, but it does go to show that he was more aware of this situation than Obama has ever been. In fact, he was campaigning about it while he was running. After 2008, the economy was able to recover and grow significantly due to our consumer-based economy and service sector jobs, which, by the way, do not manufacture anything, but it does keep the money moving, despite the leak that never seems to get fixed. The Donald is at least trying to fix the leak. In order for the economy to truly heal, tech manufacturing would absolutely need to be brought home. Now let's take a look at China. China has made tons of money on exports in the last few decades. It's what fuels their economy. It has made them a world superpower. Now, I'm not going to get into conspiracy theories about the illness because that is beyond the scope of this video, but all you need to know is that they have a dictatorship and it's not a great place to live. They notoriously censor things, limit their citizens' freedom. Citizens randomly are disappearing after not conforming with the government's narratives, and they actively post propaganda. Not a great place, to be honest. They're also allied to North Korea. Let's take a look at Obama's recent statements about how the president has handled the current situation.
This pandemic has finally torn back the curtain on the idea that so many of the folks in charge know what they're doing. A lot of them aren't even pretending to be in charge.
In this statement, you can see Obama is clearly insinuating that the president is failing. However, let's also take a look at his stance on China. As Obama himself has said, the relationship between the United States and China is the most important bilateral relationship of the 21st century. So Obama wants to cozy up to the Chinese and have them as great friends of the nation, in a sense, letting the leak continue, probably because his billionaire friends like the ridiculous profit they make outsourcing. The president, however, wants to bring manufacturing back home, disincentivize imports from China, and contrary to the Dems' fake narrative, he did take appropriate actions in resolving the current illness. Now, I want to hear from you guys. How do you think each of these presidents performed during their term? And if you have good things to say about Obama, you're welcome to say this. This is not a right or left channel. We want the best candidate who will do the best job. So post in the comments below what your thoughts are about this topic, and I'll happily respond to them. Thanks for watching, guys. Until next time.